There is a truth that most of us have never fully understood, a truth that can change everything in your life. You see, the moment you truly give your worries, your fears, and your desires to God, everything begins to shift. The impossible, the things that seemed distant or unattainable, begin to flow naturally into your life. But this does not happen because of external effort. It happens because of your inner state, your consciousness, and your willingness to trust what is unseen. Many people pray, but few understand the true essence of prayer. Prayer is not asking. Prayer is not pleading. Prayer is not the expression of desperation. True prayer is the assumption of the end. The inner feeling that your desire has already been fulfilled. It is the act of surrendering to the divine power within you, of trusting that God, the source of all, is orchestrating your life perfectly. Think for a moment about your own life. How often have you worried, tried to control outcomes, or pushed against circumstances, only to find that your efforts produced resistance? How often have you carried your burdens, thinking that if you tried harder, worked longer, or worried more, things would finally change? And yet, deep inside, you feel the exhaustion, the tension, and the persistent emptiness that comes from trying to do what only the unseen can accomplish. Neville Goddard taught us that imagination is God within us acting. That the divine does not operate outside of us, but through us. Your imagination is not fantasy. It is not mere daydreaming. It is the tool, the channel, the very instrument through which miracles manifest. Every blessing, every answered prayer, every divine intervention begins in your consciousness. It begins with your inner assumption. Now, listen carefully, the secret to the impossible being done is not in your hands. It is not in your control. The secret is in your surrender. To give it to God means to stop struggling, to stop forcing, to stop worrying. And to trust that the unseen is already arranging everything perfectly. When you do this, the world, which seems so rigid, so unyielding, begins to bend to the state of your consciousness. Imagine now the things you desire most. Perhaps it is love, success, health, abundance, or inner peace. Close your eyes and see them as already existing. Feel them. Allow yourself to experience the joy, the gratitude, the relief as if it has already happened. This feeling is not illusion. It is the signal that God responds to. It is the vibration that draws the unseen into form. Many make the mistake of thinking that worry, doubt, and fear are harmless. They are not. They are the barriers that separate you from the divine manifestation. When you worry, you are resisting the natural flow of God's law. When you doubt, you are questioning what is already done in the unseen. Every moment you live in fear, every thought of lack, delays the reception of what is already yours. Understand this deeply. God never works against you. God never withholds. God does not punish. Every delay, every obstacle, every moment of seeming silence is preparation. The divine is arranging circumstances, creating opportunities, and building the channels through which your desire can manifest perfectly. Impatience does not speed the process. Faith does. Feeling does. Inner alignment does. Let us consider the act of surrender more closely. To give it to God is to release your mental grip on how things should happen. You do not need to know the method. You do not need to control timing, people, or events. The moment you relinquish your insistence on how it must occur, you open the doorway for the impossible to arrive naturally. This is where imagination becomes prayer. Your inner feeling, your assumption, your faith, this is your communication with the unseen. You do not command. You do not demand. You assume, feel, and trust. And the universe responds to your state, not your words. Your inner world creates your outer world, and the more consistently you dwell in the fulfilled state, the more inevitable the manifestation becomes. Consider for a moment, how often have you received answers after you quietly assumed and believed? Perhaps it was a solution to a problem, an insight, a sudden opportunity, or a meeting with the right person. That was not coincidence. That was the divine working through your consciousness. That was God responding to your inner assumption. The impossible becomes possible when you align your consciousness with what is already true in the unseen. Every moment spent worrying, doubting, or forcing is a moment wasted. Every moment spent assuming, feeling, and trusting is a moment that accelerates the manifestation. Neville often spoke about the difference between desire and assumption. Desire is the feeling of lack. Desire says, I need, I want, I am not yet. Assumption, on the other hand, is the inner state of having, of being, of fulfillment. God responds not to your desire, but to your assumption. God delivers to the consciousness that already possesses, so how do we cultivate this state? Daily practice is essential. Every morning, spend a few moments imagining the fulfillment of your deepest desire. Feel it fully. Act from the inner state of having, not from lack. Throughout the day, return to that state whenever doubt or fear arises. And every night, revise your day, replacing moments of fear or lack with the feeling of fulfillment. This practice is Neville's secret. This practice is the bridge between the unseen and the seen. Do not misunderstand. This is not about passivity. It is not about laziness. You are not to sit and wait idly. Rather, you are to act from the inner state of fulfillment. Every action, every word, every thought, when aligned with your assumption, becomes a tool of manifestation. Every step becomes an extension of God's invisible hand working in your life. The big secret, the one that changes everything, is this: when you truly give it to God, when you stop worrying, when you surrender completely, the impossible begins to unfold. Opportunities arise that you never imagined. People appear who guide you in ways you did not see coming. Circumstances rearrange themselves to fit the divine design. And you, who once worried and feared, find yourself living a life beyond your expectations. Let us examine patience. True surrender requires patience. Patience is not waiting passively. Patience is holding the inner state. It is remaining calm and aligned while the unseen orchestrates the perfect manifestation. Anxiety, worry, and fear are the antithesis of this patience. They cloud the mind and delay the inevitable. Faithful persistence, on the other hand, brings the impossible into the natural world. Imagine the impossible now. Close your eyes and feel it. Feel the joy, the relief, the satisfaction, and the peace. Know it is done. Repeat to yourself, I give this to God. I release it. I trust. I know the impossible is already accomplished in the unseen. Let this become your mantra, your inner truth, your state of being. Every act of surrender strengthens your connection with God. Every moment you assume, feel, and persist, you are building a channel for divine action. The impossible, by definition, is not outside the law. It is simply something that appears to the senses as improbable, but in the unseen, it is already completed. The unseen operates according to perfect law. When your consciousness aligns, the outer world must reflect it. You cannot fail. You cannot be denied. The only thing that prevents the impossible from happening is resistance, doubt, and lack of faith. Let go. Give it to God. Stop worrying. Watch as the unseen shapes reality according to your assumption. The first step in understanding the impossible is recognizing that you are never alone. God works through your consciousness, yet most people look for answers outside themselves. They wait for signs, they wait for people, they wait for circumstances to change, and in that waiting, they doubt and worry. But all the while, the unseen is arranging, moving, and preparing the exact manifestation of your desire. Surrender is not giving up, it is stepping into alignment. It is the acknowledgement that your mind, though limited, is connected to the infinite intelligence that governs all things. When you give your cares to God, you are opening the channel through which the impossible flows. You no longer resist, you no longer push, you no longer cling to outcomes. You simply allow, and in allowing, you receive. Imagine the moments in your life when solutions appeared suddenly, when problems resolved unexpectedly, when help arrived just at the right time. Was that luck? Was that coincidence? No. That was the unseen responding to your inner state. That was God working quietly behind the scenes, orchestrating your life in perfect order, and it was always in harmony with what you assumed to be true in your heart. To stop worrying is to recognize the futility of trying to control what is already under the governance of divine law. Every effort to force an outcome that has already been seated in consciousness is like trying to push a river uphill. It will exhaust you and bring no fruit. Instead, turn inward. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Live in the end. Know that God has already provided, and let your inner world radiate the certainty that it is done. The human mind resists because it has been conditioned to think in terms of lack, limitation, and scarcity. But your imagination is not limited. Your consciousness is infinite. You are connected to the source that creates worlds. Every image you hold in your mind, every assumption you maintain, shapes the reality you experience. And when you surrender to this power, when you let go of fear, doubt, and worry, the impossible becomes inevitable. You see, God's timing is perfect. There is no delay, only preparation. You may not see it, you may not understand it, but everything is moving toward the manifestation of your desire. The perfect people, the perfect circumstances, the perfect moment, all are aligning invisibly. Your only responsibility is to maintain the state of fulfillment. Keep the feeling alive. Do not let the outer world dictate your inner reality. When you feel anxiety rising, when worry tempts you, remember this truth: the unseen responds to your inner assumption, not to outer appearances. You may look at your life and think, nothing is happening. But in the invisible, the seed of your desire has already been planted. The divine law never fails. The fruit is guaranteed. Your task is patience, faith, and persistence in the inner state. Every prayer you offer, every meditation you practice, every quiet moment of assumption contributes to the alignment of your outer world. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is delayed unnecessarily. Even the smallest act of faith, when persistent, produces measurable results. God works through the rhythm of your consciousness, and when you surrender, you harmonize with that rhythm. Now, imagine yourself completely free from worry. Picture the problem that has burdened you. See it clearly in your mind, then place it gently in the hands of God. Feel the relief, the release, the liberation that comes from trusting the infinite. This is the practice of giving it to God. This is the art of allowing the impossible to manifest. You may ask, how long must I wait? The answer is simple: as long as you maintain the inner state of fulfillment, there is no waiting. Time exists only in the outer world. In the unseen, all is already done. The impossible is already accomplished. Your belief and assumption bridge the gap between the unseen and the seen. Do not seek outward signs. Do not search for proof. Proof comes from the inner peace, the calm, the unwavering certainty that your desire is already fulfilled. When you feel this, when you live in this feeling, you are giving the universe the signal to act. Every thought, every emotion, every action that stems from this state accelerates the manifestation. Neville taught that imagination is the very language of God. The state you occupy, the feeling you maintain, is the divine signal. When you act from this state, when you speak, think, and live as if your wish is fulfilled, you are aligning perfectly with the creative principle. You are no longer asking, you are becoming. You are no longer hoping, you are knowing. And know this: the impossible is nothing to God. There is no situation too great, no problem too complex, no circumstance too limiting. When you give it to God and stop worrying, you tap into a power that transcends the limitations of time, space, and understanding. The unseen begins to manifest, and what once seemed impossible becomes natural. As you continue this practice, you will notice subtle shifts. Opportunities will arise. People will appear who offer guidance. Circumstances will bend in your favor. These are the first signs of the invisible aligning with your assumption. Do not let excitement or impatience disrupt your inner state. Remain calm, remain faithful, remain assured. The law of assumption works quietly but unerringly. Your feeling, your inner conviction, your sense of fulfillment, are the keys. Guard these carefully. Do not allow outer appearances to disturb them. The world will always present challenges, but they are mere tests of your inner state. Maintain peace, maintain faith, and continue to assume the end. Remember, giving it to God does not mean inactivity. It means alignment. Every action you take must stem from the inner feeling of fulfillment. Speak as if the impossible has already occurred. Act as if the blessings are already in your life. Think as if the doors have already opened. This is the way to manifest effortlessly. Finally, know that the joy, peace, and certainty you cultivate are themselves manifestations of God's work within you. The more you dwell in them, the more evident the impossible becomes. Nothing is withheld from you. Nothing is delayed unnecessarily. Trust the process, trust the law, and trust God. Now, let us reflect on what it truly means to give it to God. Most people think of surrender as passive, as an act of waiting, or even as a relinquishment of responsibility. But surrender in its highest form is a conscious, active recognition of your own divinity. It is the realization that your imagination, your consciousness, is the seat of God's power, and that when you align with it, nothing is impossible. When you stop worrying, you are not ignoring your problems. You are not pretending that obstacles do not exist. Instead, you are rising above them. You are acknowledging that the source of all creation is working tirelessly behind the veil, orchestrating every detail of your life with precision. Your role is not to interfere, but to remain faithful, to persist in the assumption, and to dwell in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Consider for a moment the contrast between those who worry and those who do not. The worrier acts from fear and lack, continually reinforcing the reality of limitation. Their attention, their energy, their vibration, is aligned with the very thing they do not want. In contrast, the one who gives it to God acts from faith, from trust, from inner certainty. Their energy is aligned with the fulfillment already existing in the unseen. And the unseen, being responsive to consciousness, moves to make that fulfillment tangible. This is the secret to the impossible. It is already done. The moment you give it to God, you are acknowledging that the unseen has heard you. You are acknowledging that the creative law is impartial, exact, and faithful. You are acknowledging that your imagination is the tool through which miracles manifest. When you stop worrying, you are no longer resisting the flow of life, you are allowing the divine plan to unfold. Many people struggle with patience. They want results immediately, and when the outer world does not reflect their inner desire instantly, they lose faith. But delay is not denial. Delay is coordination. The unseen is arranging all things in perfect order. The right people, the right circumstances, the right timing, all must align for the manifestation to appear seamlessly. Your faith is the bridge that connects the invisible with the visible. It is vital to understand that the impossible is nothing to God. There is no situation too difficult, no circumstance too complicated, no problem too large. God's power operates beyond the limitations of the physical world. When you give your desire to God, you are tapping into that limitless power. You are stepping into the awareness that you are not separate from the source, but an extension of it, a living conduit for divine action. Now, imagine yourself completely free from fear and anxiety. Picture the problem that has burdened you. See it clearly, then gently place it in God's hands. Feel the relief as you release control. Sense the freedom, the peace, the joy that comes from trust. This is the essence of faith. This is the practice of living in the end. Every prayer, every meditation, every quiet moment of assumption contributes to the alignment of your outer world with your inner state. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is overlooked. Every act of faithful assumption moves you closer to the tangible realization of your desire. Even the smallest feeling of certainty, when nurtured and maintained, has the power to transform your life. Remember that the law of assumption is impartial. It does not judge. It does not discriminate. It does not ask whether your request is reasonable or possible. It responds solely to the state of your consciousness. When your mind assumes the fulfillment, when your heart feels it as real, the law moves to bring the invisible into form. This is how miracles occur.